Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you love great music, this channel was made exactly for you. Just subscribe below, we're now a daily channel and you'll never miss out. Also, give us a shout out on Patreon to help us develop more of this content honoring great artists and their incredible songs. Now today we salute a band that has gifted the world so many grace-filled songs. U2, the Irish supergroup that rose to prominence from teenage punk influences of The Jam, Buzzcocks, Sex Pistols, and The Clash to becoming one of the world's true stadium headliners. I mean, U2 has sold more than 150 million records, ranking them as one of the biggest selling bands of all time. They've won 22 Grammy Awards, and they've been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But for more than 40 years, U2 has consistently created music that is important. I mean, music that really resonates and fortifies their multitude of fans, of which I am one. Perhaps the greatest accomplishment by U2 is sheer longevity, evolving, reinventing, and inspiring. I mean, the world is ever-changing, ultra-competitive, and capricious. The fact that U2 has maintained their position on top of the box office perch for decades with their original members, it's a truly remarkable feat. The infancy of U2 spawned from 1976 when they were a five-piece under the name Feedback. They changed the band's name to The Hype in 1977, and then they became U2 in 78 with a lineup that is the standard bearer for excellence and integrity, with four individuals who have straight rock and roll pulsing through their veins. Of course, Bono, the lead singer, primary lyricist, frontman, and simply one of the most iconic rock performers of the rock era, or any era. I certainly rank Bono as one of the most ingenious songwriters, as one of the most dynamic stage performers, and one of the greatest vocalists in rock history. And the only man, besides Jack Nicholson, who can wear sunglasses inside and not take any flack for it. I mean, he kind of invented that and has earned that right to a point because he is that cool. I've seen certain people hate on Bono for a while, and to be honest with you, it's really tiresome. Bono is the real deal. He sticks to his convictions no matter what the crowd says. I've heard so many firsthand stories of Bono's goodwill that he has my utmost respect. Of course, Adam Clayton, the renowned U2 bassist who has an unmistakable technique highlighted by his harmonic syncopation. Clayton has an uncanny sense of harmony and is critical to the driving rhythm captured in U2's most popular songs. Of course, The Edge, multi-instrumentalist, backup vocalist, and guitar virtuoso. The Edge is famous for his distinctive textural guitar playing that has defined U2's signature sound. He is a master with delay effects and reverb. There isn't a guitarist on the planet that sounds like The Edge. If the criteria is to possess a distinguishing style, then I put The Edge up there with other preeminent guitarists like Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Pete Townsend, Scholes, Marr, Van Halen. I mean, he's on a very short list of elite players. Larry Mullen Jr., the indispensable U2 drummer. Larry's playing style creates a big, heroic, martial sound that punctuates the spirit of U2's music. He plays each drum with equal conviction, a trait his peers often identify as something that sets him apart from other drummers. I mean, in the early days of the band, Larry was a focal point for audience adoration at U2 concerts. Bono recalled that original fans of U2 would come to their shows just to see Larry play the drums.
I can't see you. Oh, there's lights in my eyes.
And to make a name for themselves from 1978 into the early 80s, U2 worked tirelessly on the road. They certainly didn't start out playing arenas and stadiums, quite the opposite. I have a friend who saw U2 perform for like 100 people at a dive bar in Salt Lake City in '81. He told me that he didn't hear him prior to that night, never heard of him, but he thought that they were amazing. His memory is, I saw this band from Ireland. I didn't know any of their songs, but they were really cool. Man, that would have been so awesome to have seen U2 at such an early stage of their band. 1981 was the first tour of America, and U2 played in over 60 markets, mostly in small clubs like the one that my friend saw them in Salt Lake City. According to Billboard Box Score, U2 has grossed nearly $2 billion in ticket sales from 1990 to 2018. They're second only to the Rolling Stones. They're the first international group to win the Brit Award for Outstanding Contribution to Music, and among many other accolades, U2 is the first group to have a #1 album on the top albums chart in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and 2010s. Everybody has their own U2 experience, but mine is this. I remember watching MTV incessantly in the late spring and summer of 1987. Now, this was the first time that we had MTV in my house. As I've said before, I grew up in a small town in Idaho where cable television was few and far between. At that time of my life, my dad was building a home for us. We had just sold a previous home that we had in this housing development. We moved into this small rental house while we were waiting for my dad to finish this new house. Remember, most of our stuff was in storage, so my brother and I slept on the floor in our sleeping bags in this little room. Remember, I had a Garfield sleeping bag and my brother had a Transformers one. Anyway. Previous renter had cable. So because my parents were gone during the day work, and I suppose that they thought that cable TV would get us through the summer and be a babysitter of sorts. For me, it was the greatest babysitter of my young life. It was a dream come true because I watched MTV as much as I could at certain friends' houses as I was growing up, over the years prior. But it was very rare to see it. Most of the time I had to settle for Friday night videos.
This week, Friday night videos.
But they only played certain artists. I pretty much spent the entire summer glued to this heavenly channel of wonder. With or Without You was played pretty much every hour, and I loved that song. I immediately took my allowance, put it together, and I went out and got the Joshua Tree on cassette. I listened to it nonstop, and that was really the first time that I bought an album around the time that a band was rising. And I had it like as a companion to the music videos and the legend that was being formulated about this band. I had that a little bit with Michael Jackson, Thriller, and Prince, Purple Rain. I guess there was Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. But this was happening in real time. So it was a transcendent experience for me. I remember at first I said Bono's name wrong. I got it wrong. I was calling him Bono. Hey, I was like 10 or 11. I was still learning. Anyway, I remember telling my dad about Bono, except I was calling him Bono. And I said, hey, Dad, you know about this Bono? He's such a great singer. And my dad was like, well, of course I know Bono. I'm impressed that you know about him. I remember thinking, man, my dad is so cool. He knows who Bono is and who U2 is. Now, a few nights later, my dad says, hey, buddy, I've got this big surprise for you. I rented this show at the video store. You're going to love it. So I'm all excited. He puts the tape in the VCR, and all of a sudden,
Girl who makes me feel the way that you do. You're all right.
the Sonny and Cher show comes on. I look back at my dad, and he's like, Sonny Bono, your favorite. I was so confused. I never made that mistake again. Anyway, that summer, U2 The Joshua Tree was my constant companion, like I was saying, and it led me to The Unforgettable Fire and War and Boy and everything else. Bono and the band seemed to construct songs that went well beyond the typical love songs and songs about girls and cars. They were the first band that I had discovered on my own who really challenged me as a young listener. I started to dive really deep into the lyrics and the meaning of songs more than I had ever done previously. They opened my mind to other bands as well that I discovered that summer on MTV, stuff that I wouldn't normally like as a kid, like REM and The Replacements. They may have been the first band that converted me as much to their album tracks as their singles. Songs like Running to Standstill, Red Hill Mining Town, Bullet to Blue Sky. And these songs' messages, again, weren't easy to decode for a little kid. This wasn't mindless, catchy pop for tweens. This was a thinking man's band. For me at 10 years old, this album was truly a minefield of philosophy and wonderment. It also wasn't the type of music that I got tired of after a month and went on to a different cassette. It was an album with layers upon layers of fire, veracity, and truth. I mean, 3 chords and the truth indeed, except that the Edge added a lot more to those 3 chords and played them unlike any other guitarist I'd ever heard. Combine that with the conviction and brazen emotion of Bono's voice, and you have something so passionate, so magical that it simply can't be conveyed in a YouTube video. Anyone who's heard this album more than a few times or grew up with it knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's transformative and utterly compelling. To put a final word on it, from my perspective, U2 The Joshua Tree was an album that I couldn't see through. When Bono said in one of the biggest hits from that pristine record that he had searched far and wide for the meaning of life and he still hadn't found what he was looking for, it was perplexing to me, and it still is because it's so true. I don't know about you, but I'm still running, and it's taken me decades to figure out that it's not the destination, it's the journey. And that joy was always ever present in that beautiful song. Having said that, here's my U2 80s fiver. Now, we're going to focus on their incredible 90s repertoire in a future tribute, but for now, here's my fiver of U2 songs from the 1980s. Number 5, I Will Follow from Boy, their debut album in 1980. We have to bow down to the Edge on I Will Follow. The tune grips you from the opening lick of the Edge's 2-string guitar riff that permeates throughout the song. I Will Follow was also a revealing preview to discovering the depth of Bono as a lyricist. Bono wrote I Will Follow about his mother who passed away when he was just 14. The prose is from the perspective of a mother and is about the unconditional love a mother has for a child. I Will Follow ascended to number 20 on the Billboard Top Rock Tracks chart, and it was the track that really started to build the mainstream and modern rock radio airplay foundation in America for U2. Every time they play that in concert, it's just pure magic. Number 4, Pride in the Name of Love. The lead single from U2's 4th studio album, The Unforgettable Fire. It's U2's tribute to the great Martin Luther King, along with reverence to other nonviolent leaders throughout history that crusaded for the equality of man. When elaborating on the song's meaning, Bono stated that the song speaks to how those leaders lived their life with an inner pride in all of humanity. The bridge of Pride in the Name of Love was turned into a touching remembrance of the fateful day when MLK was assassinated. Early morning, April 4, shot rings out in the Memphis sky. I love how he does that with the vocal. Free at last, they took your life. They could not take your pride. Those words written so long ago have never been more important than they are right now.
In the Memphis sky, free at last, they took your life. They could not take your pride.
Pride in the Name of Love was a huge international success for U2. It went to number 3 in the UK, number 1 in New Zealand, number 4 in Australia, and number 2 in Ireland. Curiously, the song stalled at number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it was a rock radio staple in 1984, ascending to number 2 on the US Billboard Rock Tracks. Number 3, from the 1983 album War. This song is not a rebel song. This song is Sunday, Bloody Sunday, one of the greatest drum grooves of all time by Larry Mullen Jr. Larry's double-handed hi-hat pattern being played between the hi-hat and the snare drum creates a warlike marching effect that sets the tone for one of U2's most political tunes. Sunday, Bloody Sunday recounts the gruesome massacre in 1972 where British paratroopers killed 13 Irish citizens at a civil rights protest in Derry, Northern Ireland. Bono's lyrics in Sunday, Bloody Sunday are condemning without being partisan. Now, the recording of Mullen's drumming was captured on the staircase of the recording studio in Dublin that U2 was using to make the War album. Producer Steve Lillywhite, who has been an invaluable contributor to the revered U2 sound. Had the idea for Larry to play the drums on the stairway to give it a fuller sound with a natural echo. When Bono sings, no more in the rattle and hum performance, it's excruciating. It's just heart-wrenching. Rattle and hum, that's another story for another day, and we'll definitely cover that. Number 2, Where the Streets Have No Name. The third single from the Joshua Tree, 1987, the game-changing album that we've previously discussed, that, by the way, has sold over 25 million copies around the globe. Now, Bono wrote the lyrics about the class structure of Belfast, a city where you can predict a person's religion, political affiliation, or income status by the street that they live on. The song, as I understand it, was extremely challenging to produce. The arrangement was literally scribbled on a blackboard at the recording studio. Acclaimed producers Daniel Lanois and Brian Eno teamed up to produce the Joshua Tree, and both lamented about the complexities of producing Where the Streets Have No Name. Now, this is interesting. It's been estimated that producing Where the Streets Have No Name took nearly 40% of the total time that it took to record the entire Joshua Tree album. Wow, incredible. At one point, Brian Eno became so frustrated that he instructed a production assistant to just erase the tape and scrap the song altogether. Lanois recounted that the assistants, fortunately, didn't oblige Eno, and the team persevered, finishing what has become, in my opinion, one of U2's finest compositions. Now, the treatment for the music video for Where the Streets Have No Name was a tip of the hat to the Beatles' rooftop concert, with U2 putting on an impromptu concert on the roof of the Republic liquor store located at 7th and Main Street in Los Angeles. It was lighthearted plagiarism, since nearly every artist has borrowed something from the Beatles, but regardless, it was an amazing piece. I remember seeing that video and I was just awestruck. Of course, it won a Grammy Award for Best Performance Music Video in 1989. Where the Streets Have No Name peaked at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it hit the top of the charts in several countries, including U2's native Ireland. Man, the first time I heard this song, it was baptism by the way of rock and roll. Where the Streets Have No Name is literally what freedom sounds like. Number 1, from 1987, With or Without You. I had to do it. It's the first song of U2 that I ever heard that really just blew me away. Of course, from the Joshua Tree, the first of 2 songs that hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in America for U2. Bono delivers his finest, most versatile vocal performance in this song about the conflicting lives of a famous musician and a married man. It was another complex song that could have easily been relegated to a stack of forgotten demos, but a good producer can turn a diamond in the rough into a blazing sparkler, especially when you have not one but 2 superstar producers in Lanois and Eno. The producer team expertly directed the process of shaping Bono's demo into the classic that With or Without You has become. I know it's been played a lot, but it's just simply a masterpiece. An ambient sound was added by the Edge with the use of an infinite guitar. Adam Clayton increased the volume of his bass, and Mullen incorporated an electronically enhanced drum kit, and the melodic structure of this song just came together so perfectly. Then it was up to Bono to unleash that incredible vocal that starts off with this beautiful lower register, and then it rises into a pleading higher octave. Bono's climactic vocals combined with the increased intensity of Mullen's percussion and the Edge's signature guitar riffs just generates an explosive apex of sonic passion that few artists have come close to. I've always loved the verse that was added in Rattle and Hum. You know, this was an extremely difficult fiver to decide. I have to give honorable mentions to the following 3 songs: New Year's Day, A Sort of Homecoming, and Bad. So please join with me in celebrating U2, a band that allowed us to reach out and touch the flame. Now, if you really want to celebrate U2 in style, go pick up this vintage U2 Joshua Tree tour shirt that I'm wearing right here by clicking on the link below. Also, pick this amazing album up on vinyl, or treat yourself to the Joshua Tree 30th Anniversary 7 LP Super Deluxe Edition. It includes the album, a live recording of the Joshua Tree Tour, 1987 MSG concert, rarities and B-sides from the album's original sessions, as well as new remixes from Daniel Lanois, St. Francis Hotel, Jackknife Leaf, Steve Lillywhite, and Flood. Plus, it has this 84-page hardback book of unseen personal photography shot by The Edge during the original Mojave Desert photo session that they did in '86. 7 LPs pressed on 180-gram vinyl, or you can get it on CD. Both are on sale right now. There are only a few left, so click on the Amazon link below in our description. Here's the thing, if you like our content, subscribe so you don't miss out. Help us keep the music alive. Now, the reason that we are now adding the album in and the t-shirts and everything like that is because I want to honor this by truly engrossing yourself into this music. You know, back in the day, we actually went out and bought an album and sat down and put it on the turntable and listened to it and read the liner notes, and that's what Professor of Rock is all about. So from now on, we're going to do that. We're going to celebrate these great albums, and then let's talk about it in the comments. Tell me about U2. Tell me about your favorite album, your favorite songs. Again, help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Stay safe out there.